Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Hope you had a great weekend. You know, it's early days yet. We're not escaping what has been referred to as the Obasanjo letter bomb. The papers are all full of the fact this morning that, you know, Presidents Buhari and former President, President Buhari and former President Obasanjo actually, you know, they met in Ethiopia, and their pictures are splashed all over the place, both of them smiling. Okay, that's a nice, you know, aside to the whole affair. But my guests this morning are Fred Oke-Nzeako. He's a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Yori, and good morning to our dear viewers.
Indeed. And Ahmed Abbas. He's also a lawyer and a social commentator. We see a name like Ahmed Abbas, I hit him with an allergy. He says, there you go again. I'm used to it. Everybody thinks everybody with a name like that is an allergy. I'm not one. Good morning, and thank you very much for coming on, Ahmed.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
Indeed. Now, OBJ, the letter bomb, so-called. The part of it that suggests a political movement, a new political movement, coalition for Nigeria. Let's look at that, and let's put that a bit in perspective. First of all, most commentators think it's dismissive. That very idea, the very notion of suggesting a political movement, which the former president was careful to say was not a political party. If it does evolve into that, then I'll step out. But it's dismissive of the fact that, there are two leading parties. The members of the other parties might even argue the point that, what do you mean two? There are more than two. But to somehow say that none of this really matters, and I've got a fresh idea for you. It's called coalition. I'll be very, very happy to be involved in setting it up, you know, and running it. It's only that, should it come to a matter of nomination, count me out. Ahmed, what do you think of that very notion, the notion that Obasanjo thinks a totally new political platform or movement is necessary?
I subscribe totally to the idea that we'll need to galvanize more Nigerians. This morning on my Facebook, I said, the women are tired, workers are tired, pensioners are tired, students are tired, youths are tired, professional groups are tired, even the unborn children are tired, including God himself is tired about Nigerian case. Tired because the contradictions are inexplicable. In the abundance, in the midst of abundance, material resources, inexplicable poverty, in the midst of talented, creative, resourceful Nigerians, mediocrity sitting in high places, making us a subject of ridicule in international community. I'm ashamed sometimes.
Yeah, but the point, Ahmed, I'm going to come back to you. Let me quickly bring it to Fred, because you've taken me in a different direction. When Ahmed said that the contradictions are inexplicable, I don't agree. The contradictions are easily explained if we want to tell it like it is. It's really insincerity of purpose, isn't it?
Very simple, Yori, but let me very quickly...
I mean, actually coming up with one idea, one notion to gather people in, but not being able to deliver because there's a material gain that's going to be affected. And everybody's looking out for himself.
Before I go into that, permit me to reorder the caption that journalists have adopted to describe former President Obasanjo's letter as letter bomb. I would rather
it's just one of them.
I know. I would rather prefer it is called bomb letter, because there's a lot of difference between letter bomb, going by the experience we have with the death of Delegiwa, and then you better call this one bomb letter, so that we don't miss the issue.
Okay,
now,
no.
Yes,
when they write that caption, they put it in quotes. They put the expression in quotes.
Yes, I know, I know. But I would love if they will heed this my advice and call it bomb letter instead of letter bomb.
Okay.
Now, I agree completely with Ahmed about the contradictions in Nigeria,
which he says are inexplicable.
They are difficult to understand, and that makes it inexplicable, because there's no way you will explain to somebody that Nigerians are hungry in the midst of plenty, But it is easy to solve. The problem we have is lack of will. The greatest problem we have today is the problem of who will bear the cat. And that is why in my analysis of former President Obasanjo's letter, I will simply say that everything he wrote there was good, but he sidestepped one important thing that would have moved us forward, and that thing is restructuring. Of course, Obasanjo has had his own idea of what restructuring is. He said we need a restructuring of the mind. What has been the problem is that the system has not been working. The individuals are there, but the system is failing. And it continues to fail. Decade by decade, Nigeria gets worse. Every decade is worse than the previous one. Take it from the 60s. And the challenge is, especially with respect to the unitary system that we have found ourselves in, from that day onwards, Nigeria had been decaying day by day. The people are there. The resources are there. But the system is continuously failing. And the rate of failure of the system is exponential now because it has snowballed into massive division. It has snowballed into massive segregation. And how do you arrest it? I have looked at Nigeria very critically, and I will not stop lending my voice to that feeling and that position that restructuring will help us a lot. Everybody will have his own version of restructuring. But anybody who knows, who wants to be sincere, will know that anything we're talking about restructuring has to do with allowing each nationality in this country a fair degree of autonomy to grow on its own. And that is what is the juice in the American-style democracy that we have borrowed.
But the whole notion, Ahmed, of restructuring doesn't go down equally well with everybody. There are fears. There are fears. That, look, Nigeria is what it is. It's rich. Potentially, it's out of this world. There are those, let it be said politically incorrectly, that there are states that are hangers-on, let it be said, and that are being maintained. Now, they're scared to death of the whole notion of restructuring. So if we're going to have a conversation on restructuring, there's a sense in which it's a difficult thing, but we've got to also accommodate that, even if you want to call it unreasonable, fear. Not a bit unlike the whole Fulani problem, which, you know, there are notions about it and the unfairness of it. And no, that's one of the issues, isn't it?
The issue of restructuring, if you talk about states...
Some are scared of it.
You know, it's because the military, they distorted the arrangement our founding fathers negotiated. If you're a student of history, you'll realize that the 1963 Constitution wasn't just some set of people sitting down. They were negotiated over a long period of time.
Exactly.
And they took their differences into consideration.
Exactly.
When they negotiated that constitution. They looked at the peculiarity of each of the regions and came to the conclusion that, look, what will best work for Nigeria is a federal system.
Federal system.
So that constitution was a product of serious negotiation among the regions prior to independence. And when the military came, they distorted, abandoned that structure, and began a unitary system of government. And that is where we are till date. Look, if you discover...
Why do you...
Can I? If you discover that you are heading, you intend going to Benin, and along the line, you saw a road sign that says,
Welcome to
30 kilometers to Enugu. the most, are you getting my point?
Yes,
Look,
yes.
don't engage in self-deception.
Yes.
You need to make a U-turn and go back.
Thank you.
It will require negotiation, transparency, and honesty in our conversation.
Okay.
We must come to the conclusion that this structure is not working.
Now, that's the point right there where my overly simplistic position of we're not yet ready to speak the truth to each other. We're being let it be said, we're being politically correct. We're trying to accommodate everybody's, feelings. Nigeria is one, etc. Don't even talk about, negotiating whether we want to stay together. These are the notions that we have, and you can understand it. You can understand it on one level. How do we get out of this whole problem? Is it going to be negotiation again? Because all of the states are not equally viable. It has been said by people who know about such things that if they were really to run on their own, some states can't survive, whereas some states would be pretty well, would be doing pretty well. So there's all this. It seems like a very complex issue, which it might not be inappropriate to ask, how much did President Obasanjo in his own time do towards reaching this utopia that he's talking about now in the Coalition for Nigeria?
I think President Obasanjo, in that letter, was trying not to indict himself and his ilk, because he belongs to that section of the country that has brought Nigeria to its knees.
There are those that say Obasanjo is part of the
He
problem.
belongs to the section of Nigeria, Nigerians, the group of Nigerians that have brought Nigeria to its knees. And that group...
Now, this is without prejudice.
This is
without prejudice to all the right things he said in this letter.
Apart from the right things he said,
yes.
and all the right things they may have done. All the right things they may have done. But structurally, they distorted Nigeria. And it is not the substructure, the superstructure that is important. It is the substructure, the foundation upon which the nation is built. It is not the flyovers that's important. It is the structure of Nigeria that the military distorted. So President Obasanjo tried to cleverly avoid indicting the military. And any good student of history, like Abbas said, will not exonerate the military. Correctly or wrongly in their opinion, they may have done what they feel was right for the system, but with the knowledge of hindsight, you cannot exonerate them from distorting the substructure and the foundation of Nigeria. And that is why I now said in my opener that the challenge we have today is the case of who will bear the cat. Now they are no longer in power. If they were in power, it would have been a little easier. And that is why sometimes I mooted the idea of a benevolent dictatorship. But how do you do it? How do you do it? We are going round and round in a circle. We cannot affect and effect effectively the structure of Nigeria with the way the political climate and the political polity is being run. It is difficult. And that goes for that sincerity of purpose.
Okay, and still...
Let's go for that sincerity of purpose. And that is the only place where I can now key in Chief Obasanjo's coalition for Nigeria. Chief Obasanjo is thinking, from my own understanding, about that group of people that will bear the cat.
Okay.
And who are they?
Now, President Obasanjo, it depends on, what side of the divide you're on. There are those, the man, he's respected, globally. But he's a thorn in the side of many, even those who agree with what he's saying, that there's so many different ways of speaking. If you could add a bit more humility to the mix and all of that and all of that. So all of that is to one side. But how trustworthy in political terms really is President Obasanjo? He accused President Buhari of lacking an understanding of the dynamics of internal democracy. He said that. Now, President Obasanjo, he's muted the idea of floating a movement, which he says he would be delighted to be part of the development of and the running of. I've heard commentary at least that if you people fall for that, meaning Nigerians, knowing the antecedent of President Obasanjo, who always wants to be relevant, wants to be in the limelight, wants to be in the scheme of things, if you go with this coalition for Nigeria, at the end of the day, you're going to regret it. Well, this is showing intense suspicion of his, no doubt from his own point of view, noble, altruistic motives. But what do you think about this whole aspect of Obasanjo wanting to be part of that and indeed the running of it?
You know, twice, the President Olusegun Obasanjo had the opportunity of midwifing.
The former president.
The former president, sorry. Had the privilege of midwifing successors. And those two actually ran into a problem. A leader should be able, in planning your succession, ensure that whosoever you are handing over an enterprise to, you must headhunt a better person to enable him take that organization or nation to a higher pedestal. If you deliberately look for somebody that is less intelligent than you are, it means you do not even have the interests of the organization at heart. So in succession planning, twice, we've had problem. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be wary. Because when Umaru Yar'Adua came on board, may he so rest in perfect peace, you know, in terms of the man's integrity, is unquestioned. But the rigor of the office of the president of a 180 million dynamic, complex nation like that, it requires extraordinary stamina that a frail man ordinarily should not have been involved in that. Because from inception, everybody knew that ship was not going anywhere. And eventually, it turned out to be the way Nigerians expected. Because
and President Obasanjo came back to say that he's shocked at people saying he did it intentionally. That he knew the health, profile of the respected former president and still foisted him on us. He has said he's shocked at that notion. Why do people think I'm that about it?
No, it was in the news. People knew Yar'Adua was managing a terminal ailment even when he was governor of Katsina State. I mean, it was in the news. We are all students of history. We knew he was managing his health.
But Obasanjo still persuaded us.
In fact, before his exit from his own even account, I think he was even planning to go back to lecturing. One of those days. So, I mean, his health status was in the public domain.
So he did that. That was the first time, right?
The second time also, the first time was during the civilian era and things like that. And, Jonathan and all the rest of them. See, he has a role to play. Like you said, he's respected globally and all the rest of them. And he has been privileged and...
don't forget that he handed over to Alhaji Shehu Shagari in 1979.
So, you know, he has been privileged to play very, very strategic role in this nation. You may like him, you may not like him. He did some things right. It is not everything that he did right. He did some things quite all right that were right. And there was other things he did that were not quite right, like people talking about. But be that as it may, let me take one thing from, the issue of galvanizing.
I was going to ask if at the end of the day you trust that, Obasanjo is in there altruistically in this coalition for Nigeria thing, against the backdrop of those who fear that you don't know what's hidden. You don't know the hidden agenda, and if you're going to dine with President Obasanjo, metaphorically speaking, you need to have a very long spoon.
I will not delve into whatever be his motive, because I'm not in his mind. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a seer that will see the intention or the motive of a man. But what I'm saying is, if he's using his clout to galvanize Nigerians to say, look, this enterprise called Nigeria belongs to each and every one of us. Enough of sitting on the fence and allowing a recycled set of politicians to constantly determine our destiny. For me, I'm also tired. Not only tired, I also know people in diaspora are tired. This country, like I said, when I use the word inexplicable, I'm not saying there are no solutions. I'm simply saying it is illogical.
Now this is, Fred, the notions that Ahmed is talking about that could possibly be, leading President Obasanjo, these notions weren't brought to bear when he was in charge, but then that's natural. He probably felt we never had it that good. Now, as I keep saying, without prejudice to the contents of the letter which a lot of people, I would just guess, having no scientific basis whatsoever, to say that something like 85% of Nigerians must be down with the contents of the letter. But the way he said a lot of things was hardly presidential. It wasn't the most refined, it wasn't the most elevated, and you begin to wonder as to the motive. And so the question to you is the question I asked Ahmed too. Would you trust President Obasanjo's coalition for Nigeria with him being in there wanting to take a leading role in it?
I will not trust any coalition whatsoever that will be based on the current structure of Nigeria. Be that the one championed by President Obasanjo, be that the one championed by anybody, no matter how altruistic that group may be. You know why? Because you cannot build something on nothing and expect it to stand. The structure of Nigeria, as presently constituted, is a structure that is built on consumption, on wastages, on bottlenecks, on inequity, on injustice. Until we touch that structure, then anybody can lead this country.
But
Any group of people.
That's what the Coalition for Nigeria is supposed to do. Fresh thinking.
That
is why I said he has dismissed the existing political structures.
He dismissed the existing political structure. He went short of telling us how best that can be done. Because he himself said in that letter that he doesn't know how to do it. But that he was thinking that the coalition will be a way out. One
moment, please. Yes. Let me get... Mr. George, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. Uncle Yori, the suggestion of a coalition for Nigeria by OBJ, to me, defies sound reasoning. This is the same OBJ that says PDP is bad, APC is bad. They cannot take us to the promised land. He is the same person that is calling people from APC, calling people from PDP and others to come and form a coalition. What does that tell me? There is no sincerity of purpose. This same OBJ was organizing former heads of state to meet in Mina when President Buhari was sick in London in an attempt to seize power from him. I cannot marry that with sincerity of purpose when he's calling Nigerians to come and join a coalition that he is forming. You see, they want to tell us what to do. Now, secondly, I do not agree with the presentation there that structure is our problem. I've said it before, Uncle Yori, that only a bad workman blames his tools. We are talking about structure. People form structure. And it is the way the people form a structure that it will work. We borrowed democracy from America. Have you ever had any argument in the American political space that this appointee is from one place, this one is from Alaska, the other one is from Manhattan? It's never the basis of appointing people. They talk about service. But here, we don't talk about service. We talk about where this person is from.
But Mr. George, don't we have to, localize democracy? In other words, democracy won't mean the same thing to 13 different people.
Yes, we need to localize, but the principles of democracy that we borrowed must not be lost in the process. We are to localize it in accordance with the need of our own environment. But we don't seem to be doing that. We are capitalizing on where the person comes from instead of what he is capable of doing. As long as the attitude to governance, our attitude to governance is in that mode, we will never get anywhere. Even if you say today we have 100 states, everybody is looking for a space to make money. Of all the people that are now talking about coalition, talking about no good structure, how many of them identify corruption as our problem? The main problem of this country is corruption.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. I've got to interrupt you now. I apologize for doing so, but thank you very much for calling in. Ahmed, what do you think of?
I want to agree with him to a certain extent.
On the aspect of structure?
No, yes, on the aspect. See, the basic problem of Nigeria, the average Nigeria on the street, the way we govern our people, we have impoverished them. The resources that we need to use in empowering Nigerians to restructure the economy, expand the economic opportunities, to accommodate everybody. The ruling class have hijacked it.
That's right.
The contention for an IPOB, the contention for Oduduwa Republic, it's because people feel alienated and they do not have a sense of belonging. Economic opportunities are not there. Every day by day, people are impoverished. And because of that, let me tell you, let me give you a typical example of the life of an average Nigerian through the institutions that render service to them. Take, for example, simple passport. For you to get a passport, this is not the work of the president. The passport papers are there at the passport office. An average Nigerian walks into a passport office. They tell you the official price is 10,000 naira probably. But you have to wait for 2 months to get it. But the unofficial price is 32,000 naira. You pay it and you wait and get.
That's not the ruling party. That's not the president. That's not the executive.
So when you say structure,
that's us.
You see, the system, when every time people say system, what do you mean by system? It is the value system of the workers you have in those institutions that you call a system. Nigerians interact with their value system. People who believe, for me to serve you, you need to pay me.
And that's the way it goes. So corruption...
Are you getting my point?
It is.
You go to the airport, immigration, until they were cleared off. There were times...
Ishaq in Jos, I'm coming. 1 second, please.
An average Nigerian wants to travel because he doesn't have bodyguards and all the rest of them. He's subjected to some torturous clearance. Before, some few months ago, you want to go with little egusi to go and eat. They will subject you to ridiculous...
Okay, so there's a way we treat ourselves because the system is the way it is.
The corruption, the value system of the workers.
Okay, this value system, I'm going to come back to it. Apologies, Ishaq. Good morning. Are you still there, Ishaq?
I'm still here.
Apologies for keeping you waiting. Good morning, sir.
It's all right. Good morning. How was your weekend? And good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
I want to begin by correcting the submission of the Mr. that God is tired of Nigeria. I believe God is not tired, and may God never be tired of Nigeria. If God is tired of them, we're expecting our prayer is that may God always be with us. Then on the call for the coalition, my take on that is that is not what we need. What we need is an orientation of the minds of Nigerians. What we need is change of attitude. I think people should be appointed or elected into position of authority based on merit. It's not where it comes from, or our voting pattern should always be tied towards religion or ethnic sentiment. We should always vote or appoint people on merit. I think, but that's what will take us to the next. I think Obama just raised some fundamental issue. I think people have been saying that maybe he has the ulterior motive for doing that. Nigeria is a very difficult country to govern because people in Nigeria are dynamic. We're always paranoid on the issue. So I think we have a very fundamental issue. The government should address it before 2019. And by 2019, our prayer is that may God give us leaders and take the interests of Nigeria as the priority.
Okay.
I think what we need is to have...
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling in. So, Fred, does the Coalition for Nigeria, where is it going to draw its membership from? I'm reading, at this kind of time, you don't necessarily believe everything you read in newspapers, but they say approaches are being made to representatives and senators, and they are talking under condition of anonymity. So you don't have very much that is concrete to grasp over. Then there's even talk that on the 31st, Ahmed Abbas in the studio on this morning, and we're wondering where exactly membership of the Coalition for Nigeria will come from when you remember that, when you remember you saw it on papers, that approaches are being made to the National Assembly, and President Obasanjo complained about recycling just a few tired old leaders. So where is this leadership going to come from?
You called it Coalition for Nigerians. Coalition for Nigeria. That means it will be peopled by Nigerians. Who are these Nigerians?
Maybe they're going to be fresh folk that we haven't heard of before.
Where are you going to get the fresh folks?
That have never had a look-in on power.
Never had a look-in on power. Fine. Are you going to abdicate the constitutional provision that allows for freedom of association? Are you going to use any fiat that you don't have to ban some people from associating with others? Now, what President Obasanjo, what we hear that the coalition is even trying to do is to go and begin to poach people from here and there.
And so how do you end up with anything different?
So how do you end up? So it will now be, the difference will now be the same. It will be a realignment of the same old folks.
1 second, please. Opera in VI. Good morning, sir.
Okay, good morning.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, and good morning to the guests over there.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, Yuri, in a country, we have 5% is enjoying the weight of the nation, and 95% is very poor. What do you think of that? Whatever Obasanjo has said in that letter, they are good, and the recommendation is okay. What we are saying, look at, when we are talking of restructuring, people who don't want restructuring, they are taking on that thing. Look at Lagos State today. People are giving an example of Lagos State. Is there Lagos State today? Is it how it is 10 years ago or 15 years ago? There is a restructuring going on in Lagos State, and that's why you can see things. That's what we are saying. We are recommending this. Let Nigeria be restructured. The old restructuring is not working. Nigeria is not working. People are suffering. In the midst of abundance, Nigerians are dying.
Yeah, but Mr. Opera, how did you arrive at this point of restructuring when we're looking at the Coalition for Nigeria, former President Obasanjo's idea, whether or not it can, cut it?
Well, if the coalition forces will come and perform differently, better. We don't care. I mean, people learn from the past mistakes. They should learn from the past leaders. They have destroyed this nation. So if they will come up with their own agenda that will revive this nation, good. But what we are saying, Nigeria is not working now.
Yes.
We need a restructuring.
All right, then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Nigeria is, I like that sentence.
It's not working now.
Nigeria is not working now.
Yuri.
Now, you alluded to some of the reasons why. Both you gentlemen have alluded to some of the reasons why.
Yuri.
The ordinary person, forget the person in the executive, forget the person in the National Assembly. Just take the ordinary Joe, me, you. What's our mental attitude? Are we ready to be...
Why has our mental attitude become what it is? Because of the massive injustice in the system. How can somebody be, how can a governor serve for 4 years and he earns huge, humongous salary for life? And another man works for 35 years, he finds it difficult to get his pay. So
it's an unjust society.
It's an unjust society. And
called by other names.
That is why we are talking about restructuring. Why will Nigeria, is Nigeria ripe for 36 states?
Coalition for Nigeria, can it bring about this restructuring?
If the coalition is going to work on the current structure, it will fail. Does Nigeria need 36 states? The answer is no. Does Nigeria need bicameral legislature where the senator or the member of House of Reps earns the highest amount of money in the whole world? The answer is should be no. How much is the salary of a professor vis-a-vis that of a councillor?
Exactly.
These are the restructuring we're talking about.
Okay.
So, I mean, people should understand it.
Gerald in Abuja, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yeri.
Good morning, sir.
Hello to your guest.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. The former president has done well, or not too well. When I say he has done well, I think there is always that temptation to go back to his track record. You can't resist it. But let me try and resist it this morning, because ordinarily, let me leave that. In his message,
because why resist it just for resisting? I mean, is he making sense?
Uncle Yori, let's go to his message.
Especially about the Coalition for Nigeria.
Yes, on the Coalition for Nigeria, that is impracticable. My fear is that coalition will take us back, to how APC emerged and the same complaints we are having. Good. The major problem of APC at the moment is because there are strange bedfellows together. Now, Obasanjo, if care is not taken, is trying to remain, the godfather of Nigerian politics. I end by simply saying, who is Olagunsoye Oyilola? How is he any different? He has had a shot at governance in this country. What are the message? What are the track record? What are the deliverables he left for us? I think we should discard this idea of coalition for Nigeria. The nearest to the way out is actually the Nigerian intervention movement. After all, there are people with activists, those who have not, pauperized this nation, those who have not, killed us, those who have been fighting for us. Obasanjo's move is to become the demigod again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Interesting. He said something about we need something of an interventionist,
Nigerian intervention movement.
Like you intervene for people close to you who have a challenge, who have a problem. It might be drug addiction, it might be gambling addiction, it might be whatever is the problem, and people who love you, people who are friends, sit you down and talk to you and find a way for you to agree to save yourself.
Yeah.
Now, with that kind of a sort of a picture, an interventionist Nigeria, is that what perhaps President Obasanjo sees Coalition for Nigeria as?
President Obasanjo is simply running away from the raw fact that Nigeria needs to be restructured.
Let me hear.
Pure and simple.
Is that what you think, President, this interventionist approach, do you think
pure and simple.
Think that's what Obasanjo is doing?
No, for me, we must be able to distinguish. There's a movement, NIM, of, I think Agbakuba is there, some professionals are there, who believes that it is high time that the professional class should have a role to play in politics by bringing their professional calling and training and practice into governance. Because when you have professional politicians who says all their life they are politicians, I don't understand. In politics in advanced countries, you come to serve and you go back to your professional calling. I think for that, I support. Let me say this. The problem of Nigeria mostly is that the people who are running this thing, who are running our country, use the office to acquire state resources to the detriment of the society. The major clamor, people running away to Libya and through Mediterranean, it's because of lack of economic opportunity.
Exactly. Sambo in Jigawa, thank you for holding on. Good morning. Sambo? Sambo in Jigawa, good morning. There must be a problem. I think we lost
The
Sambo.
major challenge is economic corruption. The resources of the state has been hijacked by a class of people. And so when an average Nigerian wakes up, he has no sense of belonging because there's nothing to engage his productive energy.
Now,
and he now has IPOB.
To be realistic,
yes.
The Buhari, administration
yes.
identified this and has put, has actually been active on that front. Fred, nobody in good conscience can say that this administration has not worked on the whole corruption issue, many facets of it. They might argue that it hasn't gone anywhere near as far as it can, but then you being a lawyer, in fact, both of you being lawyers, I'm so happy about that. Oftentimes, democracy, rule of law, they also factor in. You can't witch hunt anybody. All of which is slowing us down because you see a person, you know he's a thief, you know he can't justify his wealth, but you get a smart enough lawyer and you can walk. Now, I'm not saying it should be any other way, but this is part of our problem. I understand that some leaders, when they wanted to effect monumental changes, had to actually suspend temporarily the Constitution so that they could get work done. I don't know how that might work here.
You cannot solve a problem that is deep-rooted as Nigeria's problem by solving the symptoms. What has been going on all this while has been trying to solve the symptoms. The root cause of the problem of Nigeria, even the corruption we are talking about, It's because of the structure of the nation.
Yeah.
We are a structure where everybody
goes back to what Ahmed just said. The elite have hijacked it and want to keep it in perpetuity.
Why would the elite hijack it? A structure where everybody is looking for the cake to eat.
No, but it's a class thing now. Why would anybody struggle?
Look,
it was a class
everybody
thing.
is looking for the cake and nobody is thinking about the productivity.
No.
That is the problem with Nigeria.
If anybody were thinking about the productivity, I don't think you'd have Maybachs around here and all these Lamborghinis. It just goes to show that we haven't sorted ourselves out. Adam is on the line. We lost Adam. I'm so sorry, Adam. See if you can get back in from Ilorin.
Yori, the unitary system...
Because you spoke about our values.
The unitary system...
Gentlemen, this morning you spoke about our sense of values as a people, as a nation.
Why has our value system dropped so much? In all these things, ask why.
No, but
when you go to the root and ask why.
You can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
When you go to the root.
Most times people tell us that office has a way of changing people. I look at them in the eyes, I said, no, office will only enhance who you are as a person. It's like giving 1 million naira to a drug addict. It will help him, it will enhance his capacity for more drug.
To take more drugs.
Give that same 1 million naira to a very benevolent-hearted person. It enhances his capacity for benevolence.
To transform.
To transform. Yeah. He's passionate that, I have the power to transform. Yeah. Akunyili, Dora, lived in this country. She's a Nigerian. She took an institution that was non-existent and breathed life into it. Brought values into the organization. The organization became consultant to even some advanced countries on counterfeiting.
So that just goes to show, in Nigeria, we got the goods. We've got the goods.
Sir, there is no problem bedeviling Nigeria that you do not have capable people that can solve it.
It's just that Dora Akunyili was just a lucky find. It wasn't strategic.
No!
It wasn't as a matter of strategy, we're looking for the best. She was just a lucky find.
What I'm saying is that, yes, at least they headhunted her, gave her the job of an organization that has existed and many of us didn't even know it was existing.
And look what she did with the job.
She brought passion.
Yep.
She brought discipline.
Mr. Adeyemi Abekuta, beg your pardon for keeping you waiting all this while. Please go ahead now. Mr. Adeyemi Abekuta. Adeyemi in Abekuta.
Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Please go ahead.
I just really want to put a little contribution. I've always been trying to get in touch. This is my first time of getting...
Oh, we're so happy you made it this morning.
Okay, sir. Uncle Yori, you know what I want to contribute? About the restructuring of Nigeria. I'm asking, my own personal opinion is that why are they not amending the constitution so that the youth, the young people will be able to afford the money to buy a form if they really want to do that? I believe the government people, they know what they are doing. That's why they've not been talking about it. If you want a young people who does not have a godfather, whose parents are not rich, how do you expect such person to have money to buy such form, to participate? Because I realize most of the forms are always in millions. So please, can't you talk about that?
Thank you very much. This is part of the society that we're talking about. The point he's making is that...
Heavy monetization of politics.
Thank you. It is said that every Nigerian is entitled to run for president. The person who is disqualified is the person who is not a Nigerian. You know, just being very, very broad about it. But what Mr. Adeyemi means from Abekuta is saying is that, well, that's just in book. In practice, there is no fairness.
So what?
And whereas I just used that example, I think you can apply to many other things where Nigerians can't walk in and ask. You want a driving license, you know what you go through. We just heard about a passport, you know what you go through. Anything at all that has to do with the system and with authority or governance or government, we know that it's not just going to be a walk-in and walk-out affair.
The pseudo-unitary...
Is that part of the structure we're talking about?
The pseudo-unitary system does not encourage and enhance competition. It does not. There are no heady competition among the states. All you hear is that the governors are competing with themselves on who steals more money, on who amasses more wealth, on who gets richer.
Even though we say that cynically, because a foreigner listening to this program might get the wrong impression that Nigerians, governors are really in competition, you know, to see who can steal the most money. That's not the case. But we sometimes, when we're angry, we exaggerate.
Do we? How often? I know.
It's important that people who are not Nigerians should understand the context in which you're saying what you're saying.
Up, no problems. How often have we x-rayed the wealth of our governors before and after they leave office? How often?
Yeah, but these are things that should be done routinely. But is anybody insisting on it?
That is the structure I'm telling you about.
Emeka in Maiduguri. Emeka in Maiduguri, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, go ahead now. You're on air. Good morning.
Thank you very much. I'm just following the discussion, and I want to contribute now is the issue of the restructuring. Hello?
We can hear you.
The issue of the restructuring being presented by one of the presenters. I think the problem of Nigeria is the foundation. The problem we have now is foundation. If we can be able to get the foundation correctly, the foundation I'm talking about is the Constitution. There is a need for us as Nigeria to revisit that Constitution. That Constitution will not stand a test of time as we're experiencing today. We must be able to dismantle the Constitution and come out with people-oriented Constitution. Then that we can be able to identify and solve many issues that we have in the country.
Okay.
And if we fail to do that, we continue to have this problem from year to year. The political parties is not relevant much on this. One of the contributors is saying about allowing the youth to come in. Good. The youth will come in when we have a constitution that will encourage them to come in. Because today in Nigeria, what we need is the people that are still capable, people are still very strong, the young blood that will come in and fit into the system we are talking about. So that is what I want to contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for calling in. This restructuring, somehow this conversation has, talking about Obasanjo's letter, especially the political movement he's proposing.
The coalition.
Yes, the coalition, Coalition for Nigeria, we've come to this. And I was just wondering if this is indeed the panacea, you know, if this will, you know, for instance, now that the people have taken this whole question to restructuring, would restructuring, for instance, have an effect or impact on the Fulani herdsmen, marauding Fulani herdsmen?
Naturally, it should.
If we were properly structured,
I give you a very simple,
might it explain that?
Very simple solution to that is if the system was restructured, then every governor or every leader in every locality will begin to think of how to develop these resources you have. There is no state in Nigeria that does not have resources.
Yes.
There's none.
Yes.
Your resource may be mineral, it may be liquid, it may be solid, it may be agro, it may even be human.
It might even, yes, it might be intellectual. It might be intellectual. So it is left for you to harness that resource and stop looking in the direction or the resource of the other person. Well, this is the problem right there.
And that is,
you know, instead of getting, in other words, working for your money, instead of going for a handout, right?
Why are we not talking about ranching? That everybody knows that we solve this problem.
Cattle colony is going to start very soon.
And who told you it will start? So many governors are kicking against it.
Do I have someone else on the line?
So many governors are kicking against it. So many people are kicking against it.
Well, yeah, that cattle colony thing.
And then by the virtue of the provisions of the Land Use Act, the land across the federation belong to the people held in trust by the governors. It's only the one in Federal Capital Territory and then the ones given to the federal government that is owned by the federal government. The rest is owned in trust by the governor in the urban areas and local government chairman in the rural areas. So where will the land for the colony come out from? At the end of the day, it is a booby trap for clashes.
Well, yeah, that is true. But some people have even said perhaps...
When you talk about ranching, it becomes good business that I, as a businessman, can invest in ranching and then make money out of it.
Ahmed, you wanted to
I want to say something. You see, the mindset of our governors. I was in a meeting somewhere. They were talking about...
Could I return to you? I beg your pardon. Just hold the thought.
Okay.
Mr. Yakub, apologies for keeping you waiting. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Shikari. And then good morning to the guys in the studio.
Morning.
Let me begin by saying that the coalition for Nigeria is effective. It's going to be very, very difficult. You know why? The reason being that any coalition that's going to come up now If the coalition does not see the Dangote of this world, the $10 of this world, being the backbone to fund them, I don't think it's going to work. The only thing is it will make it work is that when Nigerian as a citizen decide for themselves, but for Nigerian citizen, layman like me in the street to decide for themselves, somebody.
Yakub.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, somebody like I can vote for somebody that I wish to vote for, but I'm one of the person in the millions of people. The only thing is that can we match these people with the resources? I'm talking about money. The money is going to be.
All right, thank you. But money is a problem all over the world. I mean, it took a Trump in America to back the system, and that's because he was able to throw billions at it. But going back to whether, for instance, a whole restructuring question could help the Fulani problem.
You know, I keep coming back to the mindset and the value system of those in governance. If it doesn't change, if you like, you restructure the entire thing, it will not change. Let me give you a typical example. I was in a meeting, they were talking about restructuring. I said, which of your governors as of today actually practice true federalism, the one they want at the federal level in their state? Most local governments are non-existent in most of the states. The local government chairmen are just mere, they were just elected or appointed. They don't have any executive responsibility. Finances are not there. In addition, you can be sure if PDP controls a state and you have a local government election in that state, you can predict the outcome of how many local government chairmen that party will produce.
That's right.
If APC also controls a state and they are conducting local government chairman,
again, the same thing.
Conducted by the state INEC,
it's always 100%.
You can be sure that, well, if it's possible.
So in other words, these processes are not real. They're just done for the form. Now, I've got to take Victor. I believe he's the last caller. Victor in Palm Grove, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, I just want to get straight to the point regarding OBJ's later, former president. I mean, he said a whole lot. But what I want to come into is former President Obasanjo has been trying to be relevant in politics, and he's just coming up with creating a coalition for Nigeria. That is not necessary. The two-party system, the two parties that are currently running, of course, the other parties, APC and PDP, they should allow them to grow. There is no need coming up with any coalition because it's going to be the same structure, the same system, the same people. So there's really no need to create another political party or whatever the name he gives it.
All right then. Thank you very much for calling in, Victor. In fact, we've completely run out of time. But then again, it's so fortuitous, your comment, the way it placed, you know, that, look, the letter is the letter. His point of view is that nothing is going to change if this coalition is going to be Nigerian-born and is going to be selecting Nigerian members from the current, shall we say, crop of leaders. So, you know, they're not doing any exhaustive research and bringing us scientists, bringing us Dora Okunyilis, people who we didn't know until they arrived in office and then did their thing. And we said, wow, you know. So oftentimes, it's not so much the job, it's what you make of the job that you get. And so those are the people we're not getting yet. Perhaps when people take that expression, what you make of the job that counts, unfortunately in Nigeria it has been what you come off with. And that's been our problem.
You said that Dora Okunyilu was a lucky find, and I agree with you. Why I say I agree with you is she was lucky to have been given the chance to operate.
That's it. That's what I meant.
There are circumstances where you want to operate and the system will not allow you to operate. And why would the system not allow you to operate? Because of primordial sentiments that are in the system. And that is why we are talking about
that's what I started off with when he said inexplicable.
Getting the structure better.
That is how you explain this.
That's why I said getting the structure better.
Primordial sentiments, consumption, what is that called? Ostentatious consumption. All of this is going on and nobody is saying, nobody's frowning at it. Nobody's frowning at this.
Because it is a rat race. Everybody is trying to outdo the other in getting the benefit of government without the necessary input that will grow
So Nigeria. We're not ready yet.
So that's the problem.
This Commodore
we gotta go
AB2,
yes.
Ukiwe, Why did he leave the service? The problem of Nigeria is not about the system not allowing you to do what you're supposed to do. We just lack men and women of courage.
One more, that's it. Lovely. Thank you very much. Ahmed Abbas, lawyer and social commentator. Fred Nzako, although Fred Nzako, lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for your perspectives.
Many thanks.
So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. This also has a repeat edition very early in the morning sometime. I'm sure you know it by now. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.